16,000 people died in one night. Someone warned them. They cut corners anyway. 11 workers exploded offshore, and 4.9 million barrels of oil destroyed an entire ecosystem. Someone warned them. They kept the dangerous stuff anyway. And thousands of hemophiliacs got infected with AIDS because one company chose profit over safety. This isn't a story about accidents. It's a story about choices. And how the same choice, to ignore the warning, has been made again and again for 200 years with the same result: millions suffer, a few people get rich, and we still don't learn. From a barrel of molasses to a bird that outran the military, from a rod through someone's skull to a Petri dish that saved more lives than any doctor, these are the accidents nobody saw coming. Except someone always did. Boston, January 15, 1919. A 50-foot steel tank held 2.3 million gallons of molasses. The tank was old. The tank was cracking. Everyone who worked there knew it. The engineers knew the seams were splitting. They painted it dark brown to hide the rust and leaks. The workers knew. They complained about the smell, the constant dripping, the danger. But fixing it would cost money. So they ignored it. On an unusually warm day, the temperature hit 41 degrees. The molasses expanded. The weakened seams couldn't hold. At 12:15 p.m., the tank exploded. A 25-foot wave of molasses rushed through the North End neighborhood at 35 miles per hour. People couldn't outrun it. Horses drowned in it. Buildings collapsed under the weight. 21 people died instantly. More than 150 were injured. The smell? It lasted for 40 years. Some say it never fully left. But here's the part that matters: the disaster that killed 21 people and injured 150 was completely preventable. Someone warned them. They chose profit over safety. And people paid with their lives. Jump forward to 1937. New Jersey. A German passenger airship called the Hindenburg was attempting to dock. It was the safest airship available. Or so they said. The problem? It was filled with hydrogen. 7 million cubic feet of the most flammable gas known to man. Engineers had warned that hydrogen was dangerous. They recommended helium instead. Helium doesn't burn. It's safe. But helium was expensive. Hydrogen was cheap. So they filled the Hindenburg with hydrogen anyway. On May 6, 1937, something ignited the gas. Maybe static electricity. Maybe sabotage. Nobody knows for certain. What everyone knows, the ship burned in 37 seconds. 37 seconds. 36 people died. And one accident killed an entire transportation industry overnight. Competing airship companies canceled orders. The industry vanished. Forever. All because someone chose cheap over safe. One warning ignored. One choice made. An entire future erased in 37 seconds. Now here's where the pattern breaks, but only slightly. Vermont, 1848. A railroad worker named Phineas Gage was tamping explosive powder with a metal rod. The powder ignited. The rod drove straight through his skull. 3 feet 7 inches long. 13¼ pounds. It entered below his left cheekbone and exited through the top of his head. Phineas survived. He was conscious. He was alive. But something changed. Before the accident, Phineas was friendly, reliable, careful with money. After the accident, he became hostile, reckless, profane. His personality had been rewritten by a metal rod. Doctors were baffled. How could a brain injury change someone's entire personality? How could the brain control behavior? Nobody understood it then. But Phineas Gage's accident created modern neuroscience. It proved that the brain controls who we are. The warning nobody heeded. The brain is fragile. It controls everything about us. And we barely understood it. London, 1928. Alexander Fleming was a messy scientist. His lab was cluttered. His Petri dishes were unwashed. Before going on vacation, Fleming left bacterial cultures sitting on his desk. Normal procedure would be to clean them, sterilize them, Destroy anything contaminated. Fleming didn't. While he was gone, mold grew on one of the cultures. The bacteria around the mold died. All of it. Dead. When Fleming returned, he almost threw the dish away. Contaminated cultures were useless. Garbage. But something made him look closer. The mold was killing the bacteria. Not harming it. Killing it. Penicillium fungi was producing something that destroyed infection. Fleming had discovered penicillin. Because he was messy. Because he didn't clean up. Because he almost threw it away. That one unwashed Petri dish saved more lives than any doctor in history. Millions of people are alive today because Fleming didn't follow protocol. The warning everyone ignored. That accidents can save us if we're paying attention. April 13, 1970. Apollo 13 was 200,000 miles from Earth when an oxygen tank exploded. The explosion wasn't random. Engineers had warned about the tank's vulnerability. They'd flagged it as a potential risk. The warnings were documented, filed, and ignored. Now 3 astronauts were stranded in a dead spacecraft with no power, no oxygen, and no way home. Mission Control had a problem. How do you keep 3 people alive when their life support system is destroyed? The solution? Improvise. Engineers on Earth worked backwards from what the astronauts had available: duct tape, plastic bags, cardboard, wire. They built CO2 filters using materials meant for a completely different purpose. The astronauts followed instructions transmitted from Earth and built their own survival system in a dead spacecraft 200,000 miles away. All 3 came home alive. The warning they ignored? That redundancy matters. That backup systems need backup systems. But the lesson they learned saved lives for decades. Modern spacecraft are built on Apollo 13 protocols. 1 accident. 1 ignored warning. Millions of lives saved by the fix. Pennsylvania, 1979. 3 Mile Island Nuclear Power Plant. Operators had been warned repeatedly about cooling system vulnerabilities. The warnings were in the manual. Nobody read them. On March 28, the cooling system failed. The backup system was supposed to activate automatically. It didn't. Operators were confused by instrument readings. Instead of understanding what was happening, they made it worse. They manually disabled the emergency cooling system. A partial meltdown began. Radioactive steam rose into the atmosphere. Contaminated water leaked into the Susquehanna River. 140,000 people were evacuated from their homes. Scientists calculated the damage. If the cooling had stayed disabled for just 1 more hour, the reactor core would have melted completely. Pennsylvania would have been uninhabitable for generations. 8 million people affected. 1 hour. That's how close civilization came to catastrophe. The warning nobody heeded. Operators were poorly trained. They spent 5 minutes learning each critical system. 5 minutes. For systems that could kill millions. The fix? Retraining. Better protocols. Modern nuclear safety traces directly to 3 Mile Island, to the moment we almost destroyed a state because someone didn't want to spend money on operator education. Fast forward to 2010. Gulf of Mexico. The Deepwater Horizon offshore oil rig was operating at the edge of what was physically possible. Engineers had warned that safety systems were outdated. They recommended upgrades. The upgrades would cost $1 million. BP decided the risk was acceptable. They didn't upgrade. On April 20th, an explosion ripped through the rig. 11 workers were killed instantly. The explosion damaged the wellhead. Oil began pouring into the Gulf. For 87 days, nobody could stop it. 4.9 million barrels of crude oil flooded into the ocean. The worst environmental disaster in U.S. history. Wildlife decimated. Fishing industry destroyed. Entire ecosystems collapsed. The cost to BP: $20 billion in fines and settlements. But here's what's infuriating: the $1 million safety upgrade would have prevented the entire disaster. They knew. Engineers warned them. They calculated that $1 million in upgrades was less important than the risk. and people died. The environment died. An entire region suffered. And the warning system? Still ignored by other companies. We still make the same choice, profit over safety. Here's what's terrifying, we keep doing this. Over and over. With new technology, same mistakes. Fukushima, Japan. A tsunami hit a nuclear power plant. Engineers had warned that backup generators were vulnerable. They were placed in the basement. One tsunami later, they flooded. The plant melted down. 154,000 people evacuated. Radioactive water still being treated in 2024. The warning ignored. That design flaws compound in crisis. The Ever Given container ship got stuck in the Suez Canal. One ship. 6 days. Blocked $9.7 billion per day in global trade. The warning everyone ignored. Our supply chains are fragile. One choke point. One accident. Global economy cripples. Same year. November 2021. Astroworld Festival. Travis Scott concert. A crowd surge. 10 people trampled to death. Hundreds injured. The performer continued playing for 40 minutes while people died. The warning. Safety protocols exist. Nobody enforced them. An asteroid passed within 1,800 miles of Earth. It was detected 24 hours before closest approach. We almost didn't see it coming. The pattern is clear, someone warns. We ignore. Disaster happens. We make a rule. Years pass. New technology arrives. We ignore the new warnings. Disaster happens again. We're not learning. We're just getting better at forgetting. But not every disaster is about ignoring warnings. Sometimes disasters happen because our solutions are worse than the problem. Western Australia, 1932. 20,000 emus migrated from the outback into farmland. They ate crops. Destroyed harvests. Farmers were desperate. The Australian military had a plan, machine guns. Soldiers. Cull the birds. It was a disaster. Emus move fast. They scatter. Machine gun rounds couldn't track them. Their feathers were thick enough to deflect bullets. After 1 month of operation, soldiers had killed maybe 50 to 200 birds. Out of 20,000. The military called it a failure. But here's what happened. The failure forced Australia to develop actual wildlife management practices. Instead of killing animals, they learned to coexist with them. One bizarre failed plan led to better environmental policy. The warning. Sometimes the solution kills more than the problem. Sometimes failure teaches better lessons than success.